I'm not looking to stick up a pitchfork at Linus or hold.
Well, you are. You're not parsing through this information in a way that's like, okay, like these are really serious claims. That's not good. We'll see where it goes. You're making a moral statement that you think that she is actually telling a 100% the truth, that everything that she says is valid, even though you don't know that. Right now, the social atmosphere is against Linus Tech Tips, which makes sense because they seem to be making huge mistakes. And because of that, people think that anything that's against them that comes out must be correct about them. It's possible that this was her dream job. It's possible that they treated her terribly. It's also possible that she was awful at the job, and all of these things together are stressing her out. All right, guys, Linus Tech Tips. I guess he's under controversy again. You know, I got two videos here. One that seems to be a little bit of a recap on like all the stuff that's been going on, and then one is an employee coming forward talking about horrible working conditions. I will say, just off the jump, cool vernacular, Papa got. It's weird when like somebody gets exposed for something which seems to centralize around them making, I don't know, bad content or something. We're gonna look into it real quick. And then all of a sudden somebody comes forward with like an allegation of like, oh, they did this too. And it's like, okay, it's just weird. It's so opportunistic. I don't know. That's how I interpret it sometimes. It's like an opportunistic thing. I could be wrong. We're gonna look at it. But it's like, oh, you know? It's like, oh my goodness. But, you know, maybe I'm just a big stupid idiot. Well, you know what? I am a big stupid idiot, but, you know, maybe I'm also on top of that wrong about my assertions. So anyway, let's watch this first video from GamerMeld. It's a really quick rundown of what's going on. Let's go.
Over the last couple of days, some pretty bad things have been coming out about what is quite possibly the biggest hardware channel on YouTube, Linus Tech Tips. And let's just say a number of brand new things have been brought to light that will seriously shock you, including new accusations from a past employee. But first, with new CPUs and GPUs coming out, make sure you're ready with Meld Alerts, the completely free sign up that sends you
No, thank you.
Ooh. Welcome everyone to GamerMeld. Starting things off, to go over the backstory a bit, it all really started with this video from Linus Tech Tips. In it, he reviewed a monoblock by Billet Labs that was unique in that it was made to water cool both the CPU and GPU with one block. So a neat concept and something that hasn't really been done before. The issue is that in the video, Linus reviewed it with an RTX 4090 instead of the 3090 Ti that it was made for.
Was that intentional? Or?
The company said that they could try it, but couldn't guarantee that it would work. And I have to say that it is wild LMG did this because GPU water blocks are specific to a certain GPU for a reason.
So, like, are we saying they did this on purpose, or maybe they just didn't have the? I mean, this is what is starting up. Okay. That seems like a very big deal.
There are cutouts for specific components of an exact GPU, so using a different one really doesn't make a lot of sense. Yet Linus based the review off of that, and really they bashed the part throughout the review.
I mean, what was the point?
Okay, so I get it. People are saying, hey, you stinky little goose, you know, you used the wrong component and your review sucks. That's fair. Okay. You know, not a good thing for a tech guy to do. How angry are they at this? These guys, they should obviously apologize, but
though some of it may have been warranted, but all of it together just really isn't a good look. To make
so they made some good points.
Matters worse, LTT promised to return the monoblock because it was actually a prototype, and when they didn't like it, Billet Labs asked for it back. Yet Linus Tech Tips sold it. Now,
oh, well, that's shitty.
Gamers Nexus is the one who originally brought all of this to light, and in their original video, they also went over a ton of issues with accuracy over the course of multiple videos from Linus Tech Tips. Problems ranging from errors in representing specs to massive benchmarking issues that completely affect the conclusion of the video. Not to mention the fact that an employee during an LTT lab tour bashed Hardware Unboxed and Gamers Nexus saying this.
The difference between us and somebody like Gamers Nexus or Hardware Unboxed is we test new components, new tests every time. Every project that we do has new data.
Yet they literally proved that Linus Tech Tips does reuse benchmarks. Then Linus said some absurd comments during the WAN show in response.
It's pretty clear that not everyone in the creator space handled that super professionally. I don't obviously agree with some of the takes that were out there. I don't think that it's particularly journalistic, for example, to ignore facts to ignore personal relationships.
Really, it's been a complete crap show all around, but the main issue people had is how LTT treated the Billet Labs monoblock. And on that, quite a few things have happened. For one, Linus Tech Tips made a response on their forum that expresses disappointment with the way Gamers Nexus handled their story. And I will say that you usually do get a statement from the person you're discussing, but I don't know. I mean, I don't have Linus Tech Tips numbers, so I couldn't get a statement. I just had to wait and see. But he then goes on to state that he would have learned that LMG didn't sell the block. They auctioned it for charity, which is a pretty...
Well, that's still kind of selling it. All right, it seems like tech drama that I'm not necessarily interested in is the start to this. You know, obviously I'm more interested in the, you know, like the workplace harassment stuff. I mean, it makes sense why he would get called out. I'm seeing that now. But okay.
Weird statement. Auctioning something and selling something are the same thing. Though I guess his point...
Well, his point would be like, oh no, I did it for charity. But, you know, it's not your... you know, component to do, especially since you know, listen, I don't know the specifics, I'm not a tech guy, but you could also argue that if it's a prototype, there are particular things about it that they don't want people to reverse engineer. Even if it's not necessarily a good piece, there can still be aspects of it that can be like could be good, if that makes sense. There could be like revolutionary things about it, so it makes sense for them to want the hardware back, especially if they're like, hey buddy, we would like that hardware back right from the get-go. So, yeah.
Is that it's for charity, and that it was allegedly an accident. Next he states...
How do you accidentally sell something? What? I mean, I guess. What? Okay, sure. Makes sense.
He already agreed to compensate Billet Labs for the prototype.
Yeah, it doesn't really... I mean, I get that. Compensating them is nice, but again, like, if there's particular stuff in there that maybe they wanted to keep secret, you've kind of removed their ability for that. So, you know, that's an idiot move right there.
Issue is that Billet Labs later made it clear in a Reddit post that they didn't receive anything on compensation until 2 hours after the Gamers Nexus video. The Linus Media Group didn't apologize or anything like that until after that video. And this brings me to some of the very new stuff going on. For starters, after Linus claimed that they wouldn't do a long video about the whole situation, they did a long video about everything.
Well, I mean, that makes sense for them to do a long video about the whole situation after they get a lot of pushback. They might have been like, we don't want to talk about this. There might be a lot of complicated moving parts. And then eventually they get pressured into talking about it. So that I don't necessarily care about.
During it, they made some apologies and claimed to be working on procedures to better accuracy moving forward, which Linus Tech Tips did mention in that forum post as well. But during this part of the video, they actually claimed that there was an email written asking for an invoice to reimburse Billet Labs for their monoblock, but that it didn't get sent. To which, I don't know, that sounds pretty fishy to me, but I really just can't know for sure. Then LMG ended up finding out who won the monoblock to try and get it back to Billet Labs, but they didn't want it for some very understandable reasons. What's wild is that emails were sent out to all of their auction winners requesting to know what they bought, claiming that it was for tax purposes. And in that new video, he says this.
Side note, that same team, God bless them, didn't ask our event team who won the silent auction items and proceeded to email everyone asking. We don't need any of that. Certainly not for tax purposes. I clearly need to spend some of my week training the team, unless I actually get fired for real this time.
So he's basically saying that they just flat lied about it being for tax purposes, or it was for tax purposes and he's lying now. Either way, someone's lying here. But things have gotten even worse for Linus Tech Tips, because brand new allegations from a previous...
I mean, it sounds like they're just saying that they didn't do this for tax purposes. I mean, or that they didn't reach out for tax purposes. They just reached out to try to get the product back. Am I just like not understanding something? Okay, whatever.
Employee have just been posted on Twitter. And as you can see, a lot of these accusations are very serious.
All right, there we go. This is what we care about, this stuff. So let's watch the review tech video when it talks about the employee stuff. That's what I care about more than anything else. All the other tech stuff, it's just beyond me. I really do not care. I mean, like, I don't care. You know, it sounds like they are inaccurate sometimes about some of the things that they do. They're a little full of themselves in the way that they represent themselves. And people are rightfully calling them out. And then it comes to this situation where a former employee is talking about that there are different allegations of inappropriate workplace, whatnot. So let's go.
So former Linus Media Group social media manager Madison Reeves came forward and talked about her experiences working at Linus Media Group, and they weren't good.
Okay. Well,
They were real bad. There's a big thread on Twitter that she posted. Let's get into it. Skip it up and that up. So
we
in
got
case
here, baby.
you've been living under a tech rock, I'm pretty sure if you're watching my channel, you know what's going on with Linus Media Group. Gamers Nexus, Steve, the man with amazing hair, called them out on grave inaccuracies in a ton of their videos. They also talked about what happened with Billet Labs, and Linus got a custom expensive water block to review, and they didn't hook up the proper graphics card to it. Go watch my other video. It's
nerd shit.
There's so much that Linus Media Group and Linus Tech Tips did wrong in the videos, and so many other things. For me to reiterate it here, this video will be 60 minutes long. So go watch that video. There'll be like a thing up here or whatever Jay will do, top pin comment, or Jay will tattoo the link to the video on his left ass cheek. Anyway, go watch it so you understand the context, because there's a lot to digest. And even the video I made yesterday, to not make the video be 7 hours, I had to cut some corners. Well, Madison Reeve, who was the social media manager there, keyword was, who's also a Twitch live streamer, content creator, she decided to tell her story about what it was like working at LMG, and this is what she had to say. Buckle up, there's a lot, get your coffee, get your bird, we're going to go into
If I got coffee, I'll just dump I'll poop. I can't do it, I don't want to poop.
it. I'll have a link to her Twitter below in the description.
All right,
so
let's do it.
There's that. YouTube, it's just a link to someone's Twitter profile who used to work for Linus Media Group. Don't strike me. It's called Actually Citing Sources. Thank you.
Why would they strike him for that? Does she do OnlyFans or something? I'm just curious. Like, why would that be strikeable?
To stop the speculation and DMs I am receiving, I chose to quit my role at Linus Tech Tips because it and the working environment I was facing were ruining my mental health. The number of daily items the social media role at the time was expected to fill was incredibly high. I was expected to post 3 tweets, 2 Instagram posts, and 2 TikToks minimum per day. I was also expected to
So that I don't care about. So she had a role at a job. I don't know why 3 tweets, 2 posts, and 2 TikToks were a lot. Although I get it, she had to plan, film, and edit them, so it could take a while to do that kind of stuff. I get that. They might have overestimated the expectation of the job, although I don't know the specifics of what they were generally expected to do, but okay.
Plan, film, edit, and post 2 float plane exclusives per week. This included wrangling people to be in them when they were also all struggling to get their work done. I was also expected to manage, plan, come up with, execute, get approval for, and schedule out all the sponsored content on socials, not including YouTube, all while being told not to complain because my job was the, quote, fun job. I cannot speak on what it's like now, but they have an entire team working on, seemingly, what I was expected to accomplish alone. I misspoke originally when I had stated I had signed an NDA. I thought the employee handbook acted as one. I am not a lawyer. I never publicly made any statements regarding
so listen, I don't know the specifics of what's going on. I've been in situations where jobs have or underestimated the amount of workload that stuff would be. It is what it is. It sucks. It's a hard balance between you have to, sometimes you have to also advocate for yourself. Why am I going this way? So I don't know if she advocated for herself and said this is too much, or if she just did it. And I understand. I've been in there too. It sucks. It's kind of par for the course, I think, sometimes for some of these people, overestimating the workload. But okay.
My time there because I feared even more backlash from a community that was already attacking, defaming, and sending me death threats.
Why?
I also feared for my future in this career, given that LTT is large and has industry connections.
Okay, well, so far, if you're only, and I know there's going to be more claims, but we're going in order of what she's saying. But so far, if your claim is like, hey, the work environment kind of sucked, you complaining about that would be stupid, and I wouldn't respect it in general. About that specifically, like, oh, it was a lot of work. Oh shit, no way. You know what I mean? It's also, when it comes down to video editing work too, it's one of those things that gets a lot easier as you do it a lot more. And it can take you, it's one of those things where somebody that's good at it can get something done really quickly, right? And so part of it could be like a practice thing. I do my own editing. I know a little bit about editing, you know. So like, you don't have to come forward with that. We'll see about some other stuff.
My time at the company has brought my mental health to an all-time low.
Okay.
You could talk to anyone who has been around me during my employment, and they would confirm it. I would not recommend anyone I know to work there, especially with my experience as a woman in the office.
Okay.
I was consistently belittled by certain members of upper management.
Okay.
My
What would they
work
say?
was called dog shit. I was called
maybe-
incompetent. When I would reach out to managers and try to get help with those situations,
Okay.
I would be told to put on my big girl pants and be more assertive.
So one of two things is possible here. One, they were real pieces of shit. Two, she wasn't a very good employee. Three, both of those things are true, right? Yeah, okay, maybe she sucked. I don't know. You know, damn, this guy got fucking racked.
It sounds like every other typical corporation, which means it's
That's
terrible.
true.
It doesn't matter if you think I am or I am not stupid. This behavior is not appropriate. After enough complaints
guess.
from me, I was pulled into a meeting.
Okay.
In that meeting, the writer's room was pointed to, and I was asked, do you think any of these people would have a hard time getting a job? I said no. Keep in mind, this was about a month into working there. I was then pointed to and asked, what about you? I was scared.
Jesus.
I remember asking, are you going to fire me? I was laughed at and told stop being so pessimistic, as if my job and ability hadn't just been vaguely threatened. I was then asked to agree to a verbal no drama contract. The verbal part is important. In this moment, I realized I was no longer considered part of the team. I was now a threat because I was putting up a fuss when I believed I was being treated unfairly and inappropriately.
Oh, maybe. That's possible. It's possible that it's like a retaliation thing. It's also possible that she wasn't very good at her job. You know, or both. I don't know. Okay, so far, so something. I mean, listen, I get it, but here's the thing. I've never been an incompetent worker, so I don't really I've never necessarily had these problems. But what I will say is, like, I've been in a managerial position where I've had, like, absolute dog shit workers who are just so incompetent, and it's very frustrating. You know, and I can, on the one hand, understand somebody who maybe is, you know, has the right heart on them, trying to get their work done. I can also understand that some people are just, like, fucking things up so bad. You know? So yeah, a little. I mean, I get it. I guess in both hands. You know, that's not to say that the way that they treated her was right, but so far, you know, it's like, oh, that's like my reaction is like, oh, that sucks. But I don't think that they're horrible people. You know.
This verbal agreement wasn't right. It was a behind-the-scenes warning with no record. A warning that came shortly after I had come forward stating I had been inappropriately grabbed multiple times in the office,
there
amongst
you go. That's
other issues. I was barred in being more videos. So when you ask what happened, why wasn't she in more content, this is why. And there's an asterisk to that.
So the only thing I'm really interested in right now is the claim that she was inappropriately touched. You know, because that's like the one that, you know, I couldn't imagine there being much context for that being justified. Unless she defines inappropriate touching as like a touch on the shoulder that's like innocuous, which I can understand makes people uncomfortable, but I had bosses who touched me on the shoulder. It's so weird. I wouldn't call it inappropriate though, but, you know, I would just be like, bro, what the fuck? You'd just be like confused, you know? But we got to see more. Let's see more.
That I have to say if you're wondering why she brings that up. Madison, the woman talking here, was in Linus Tech Tips' 5th most watched video.
Okay.
Channel with over 15 million plus subscribers who uploads 25 plus videos a week. She was in the 5th most watched one.
Okay.
But yet for some reason they wouldn't have her in other videos. Like, you may not want to.
Well, what does that matter that she was in one of the videos that was watched a lot? You know what I mean? Like, I might have an old couch in one of my most popular videos. It doesn't mean that the couch had any contributing factor. I'm not saying that she did or didn't. I don't know. But her being in a very popular video doesn't mean that she was necessarily did her job correctly. But okay.
To believe her here, but that doesn't add up. There is this
Why? Why doesn't that add up? That she was in a popular video and she still wasn't very good at her job? She's just in a video. Okay.
Perplexing
And she worked there. I don't know. It's okay.
fear that people will leave Linus Tech Tips and start their own thing if given a platform. So if that platform could threaten negative things coming out about your company or you'd probably want to squash it too. In my experience,
Well, I mean, like, people generally don't want negative attention around them. Of course, you'd want to squash things, especially in a social media conversation where, like, the first person to come out about a thing is usually seen as right, regardless of whether they're right or wrong. And so, okay.
there is a belief that everything you accomplish, no matter how much it is created by your own effort, is actually due to Linus giving you a platform.
It's probably a level of truth to that. Is that what they tell you, or do they tell you that they own whatever you make while you work there? Because it's normal business bullshit. But okay.
This is what I was told when I moved from Arizona to Vancouver to take this job. Oh, wow. He sounds like...
What were you explicitly told? Was she told that, like, everything that you do is because of Linus? Or were you told, like, hey, if you make something on your own, we still own parts of it because you're working for us, which is a pretty normal thing. It's pretty normal because you're around them so much. You might get ideas from them. And then you might either take those ideas intentionally or unintentionally, because there's times where you might hear, like, a concept or something, and then you might be like, oh, and then, like, a month later you come up with it yourself. It's a very interesting psychological process. But so far, not, like, it's so interpretation. Like, if we interpret everything she's saying as perfect, you'd be on her side. I don't know if they haven't responded to this yet, so we just don't know. But so far, like, the most, in my opinion, logical interpretation. I'm really curious about the inappropriate touching. Everything else is like, oh, she alluded to she wasn't even good at her job, to be honest with you, when she's like, even if you think I was bad at my job, you shouldn't treat me like this, which is fair depending on how they treated her. But so far, it's kind of a nothing.
Every other CEO that has an ego. Guess it got to your head a little bit, dude, huh?
I guess.
Long ways from when you were working at NCIX. After it was publicly announced by Linus that he was hiring me without my knowledge or consent to that situation, and also before I was...
There's a no compete clause? Okay, hold on. Isn't that normal? What is? I want to get down exactly what this says. A non-compete agreement is a contract where an employee agrees not to compete with an employee after the employment is... Oh yeah, this is normal. This is like a normal thing. I think that the fundamental idea is that you don't come into, like, a particular business, get a bunch of information about the way that they run things on the inside and go, I'm gonna just do this myself. That seems to me at least like a reasonable buy-in. So, like, yeah, the things that she's saying are, like, weirdly interpreted normal things that people do. They were afraid people would move on and, you know, take ideas from us. Like, yeah, that's a non-compete clause thing, right? Okay.
even offered the job to me for working at NCIX. After it was publicly announced by Linus that he was hiring me without my knowledge or consent to that situation.
You didn't consent to get hired? What?
Announced by Linus that he was hiring me without my knowledge or consent to that situation.
What? Oh, am I a fucking idiot?
Long way is from when you were working at NCIX. After it was publicly announced by Linus that he was hiring me without my knowledge or consent to that situation, and also before I was even offered the job or shown the salary, I agreed and signed the employment contract, which...
This sentence doesn't make sense. After it was publicly announced by Linus that he was hiring me. Oh, okay, so she's saying that she didn't consent to the hiring. She didn't even know she got offered the job? And you agreed before showing the salary. I mean, that's why would you agree before you were seeing any of the salary? Okay, I don't even know how believable that is. I didn't get consent to being hired, but then I accepted it and I didn't look at the salary. Why? Is this woman like 4 years old? I don't understand. Yeah, I get it. She didn't consent for it to be publicly announced. Okay, she didn't know about it. Well, then why did she sign? I don't. Okay, sure.
Madison, I'm going to say this right now. That's on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
I agree with that.
You don't look over the contract before you. Okay, all right.
That's yeah, right.
Continuing on. I had been asked and been told during my interviews that I would be allowed to monetize my YouTube channel and be allowed to join Floatplane in exchange for shutting down my Patreon. Once I moved, I was presented with an entirely new contract/handbook that I was not told existed. It detailed that I was given in.
Why would she need to shut down her Patreon? It wasn't like explicit material. That's or something.
Correct information, and would actually have to make changes to my plans if I wanted to continue being employed at LTT. This was after I had moved entire countries and given up my visa status.
Oh, that
I
sucks.
couldn't just go back.
That's why I use
some
MasterCard.
corrections were made as apologies for the miscommunication, but I was still upset.
Yeah, of course.
I later went to Linus about this and stated that the effort to remediate the situation wasn't sitting right with me. He told me perhaps I should change my priorities. He was, in this instance, referring to the fact that my brother had suddenly passed away not even a week before I moved for this job, and that perhaps I should just ignore that I had been misled because that was more important. I cannot tell you how upset I felt in this moment. That's absolutely...
All right, so what she's saying is that her brother or her family member was, you know, passed away or had a problem, and they told her basically to fuck herself. I mean, that's a bold claim. I'd need to see a lot. I almost just don't believe it. It could be true, but that's a hell of a claim.
Wow. Okay. Holy crap. Continuing on, the opportunities LTT presented to me were nothing in comparison to the day-to-day issues I faced. It did not matter if I spoke to someone with evidence of an abuse of power.
Hold on.
I cannot just ignore that I have been misled because that was more important. I cannot tell you how upset I felt in this moment. That's absolutely...
I'm just trying to...
Wow.
Okay.
Holy
Gotcha.
crap. Continuing on, the opportunities LTT presented to me were nothing in comparison to the day-to-day issues I faced.
Okay.
It did not matter if I spoke to someone with evidence of an abuse of power or inappropriate workplace behavior.
Okay.
It was considered tattletaling. I was...
Well, does she still have that evidence of that behavior? Because just so you know, a non-disclosure agreement doesn't actually like cover illegal activity. So if she's... I mean, I would have saved that forever. What inappropriate shit was going on that she's claiming?
Actually called a tattletale. That's what a group of adults should say to each other.
Right, but you don't
Again,
know if
I
it actually
this
is true.
Hearsay, but
Yeah.
I don't really know why you would come out with this if you weren't telling the truth, even with what's going on.
It does, so I mean, you could say that about any allegation that you wanted to believe. I mean, like, so if you want to just be like, "Hey, I believe her," that's fine. But don't try to justify it by saying like, "Well, why would somebody come forward?" I don't know. This is the thing. One, she'd be coming forward maliciously because she's angry at the company and hates it. Two, and which is I think is very likely, is that she, after looking, this is something that happens to everybody. A situation will happen. And then after it's over, you look back at that situation through like a very heavy lens of anger, and then you start to remember how you felt, but you don't necessarily remember the specifics, and things start to change in your story, in your interpretation of the events, even if it's not necessarily the truth, right? That's possible. Might be something like that. You know, maybe she remembers things. Maybe she's right, but like I'd like to see some of this evidence. She said that she had evidence of inappropriate stuff. Like, okay, yeah, let's see that. If you have evidence, then is there like a reason why maybe you don't have it now? Like, what's going on with that? But so far, like things like, well, they were afraid of people, you know, taking or of the competition of other people. The way she phrased that, it seemed like she was saying that that's a bad thing, but that's no. But like what she's referring to is a very standard non-compete clause. So it's like, okay, if you have a weird spin on very standard business practices, I don't know how much I can take your perspective seriously, right?
Linus Media Group and Gamers Nexus exposing them, but no, I believe her.
Why?
Believe her. It
Why?
wouldn't be worth it to lie about this because you would get absolutely destroyed.
What are you talking about? Why? Like, no, I don't think that that's necessarily true. That's why you would wait for an opportune time to start doing something like this, which is now. And then on top of that, like she seems to be like, I don't know how popular she is, but what negative would happen? She's already out of the business. She's apparently, by their logic, she sucks at it. So that might be true. Let's just say she sucks at the job. She's not going to have a job in the field anyway. She's a content creator I don't know, maybe she does well in her content. She gets like 2,000 views a Twitch stream, which is like, okay. I'm trying to see, like, does she have a successful YouTube? Because if it doesn't seem, she doesn't even seem to have, there's her YouTube.
Hello and welcome back to my channel.
Okay, so she has her YouTube. She hasn't posted in 3 months, which means, like, it sounds like her career's on the way out. So she doesn't really necessarily...
This is Matt, my ex. Hey. Hello and welcome back.
She doesn't necessarily seem to be maintaining a social media career in any robust way. So what's the negative for her coming out? I don't think that there is one. It just seems to be a thing she's doing. Okay. Sure.
So, unless she's a masochist, I think she's telling the truth.
It's fine if you think.
On.
It's fine if you think that she's telling the truth. And I like Review Tech. I have to like him. He's fat, bald, and has a beard. But I just think that you want to believe her. And this is one of those things. This is why it's a really good idea to come out with an allegation against somebody when they're already under fire. Because you already don't like the person, so you're going to be less charitable to them, and by extension, more charitable to anybody speaking out against them. And so, like, considering Linus Tech Tick seems to be a fucking idiot when it comes to the reviews on some of his products, and people are like, oh, then this is something that means a lot to people like Review Tech, which is not a bad thing. I'm not criticizing it. People have interests. Now, like, we're looking at this like, oh, anything that she says must be true. And it's like, I think that we should operate in a way that's like, oh, it might be true. But also, the way that I would operate is, okay, what she's saying should be considered valid and not instantly told that she's wrong. But at the same time, you can't over-validate it and actually hold it against Linus unless she has proof. Right? You think that the rabid fans harassing her might discourage her? That's fine if it might discourage her, but if you look at the entire picture, she really has nothing to lose. She's not even making content really anymore. She just kind of exists. So...
I was told I was bossy when I was trying to be assertive, like I was asked to do. Okay. I was told I was arguing when I was trying to discuss my point of view. I was told to calm my tits, stop being such a bitch, and other comments to similar effect.
Sure, I mean, if that's true, that could be an actual conversation about how women tend to get shit on more when they're just trying to be assertive and they get told that they're just bossy bitches. Absolutely true. And telling somebody to calm their tits is just inappropriate in general. I don't think that there's any, I guess it might be, I wouldn't consider it like sexual harassment, right? I would say that to a guy too. Still not appropriate if it's true. So it's possible that she sucks. It's also possible they suck. I don't know. Okay.
There were numerous instances of misinformation being given to me purposely to negatively impact my work.
How do you know that?
I only know this because coworkers would tell me they overheard the actual information I should have been given. It felt like a horrible teenage drama movie. Welcome to...
Okay. I would hope. Does she know if any of those people like vouch for her on this situation? Because that's a big claim as well. Because that would be really bad. That would be them trying to sabotage the situation. And like, again, we would need some more proof of that than just like, oh, they tried to sabotage me. Okay.
Any corporation, whether it's Linus Media Group or working in corporate offices at Macy's, I've worked in those settings. If you think that adults are actually adulting. Yeah, okay. Whatever.
Sure, 1,000%. It also works the opposite way. I've had just as many negative interactions with my bosses as I've had with people that were like underneath me. I've had people who would show up to work. I'd send them out to do work, and then they would just disappear for 2 hours and come back and play the gaslight game, right? It goes both ways. So, and I know, and the thing is that the atmosphere is very anti boss and corporation CEO, which I understand, because especially like CEO, because they can be huge fucking scumbags. But that doesn't necessarily, that's another aspect of us being very charitable to somebody who's not a CEO versus somebody who is a CEO. I'm not saying CEOs are fucking amazing people. The point that I'm making is that the atmosphere favors somebody already, and so we have a lot of different like biases interacting with us to make us believe that she's telling the truth, even though so far there's no proof of it. But hopefully we'll see some
Work
proof.
from home was a whole issue. If you took 3 minutes to answer a personal email, you could get in trouble. Happened.
Okay.
There is a system of micromanaging and a level of distrust because the amount of content they have to push out daily is so insane, no one gets a break. I remember getting told off for taking my sick days, as in the days, you know, you're entitled to. This no days off grind set culminated in the real moment I realized I had to leave.
Yeah, so that could be a really bad thing. Here's what I do know, though, especially with my wife, is like my wife has a lot of personal time. She gets 4 weeks a year. She gets like a sick days constantly. She has a lot of time racked up. Because of the nature of her job, she can't just take off whenever she wants. She still has to satisfy some job requirements. Same thing with my mother when she was in, like, you know, you have a ton of personal time off, but you're personally, it's difficult to take that time off. You're very busy. You have a lot of work to do. Now, they could be abusive about it. It also could just be something that is very normal when it comes to workplace culture. Like, hey, we're going to give you lots of PTO, but you have to adhere to particular deadlines and get particular work done. And we're going to be very specific and stringent about it, right? So, like, maybe, you know, that's the thing, is that, like, I come from a more workplace-oriented area, and these could be valid, but, like, you need to show so much because it's so normal to be in a position where you have PTO and that you still have to get work done. What does my wife do for work again? You guys don't know? I've never told you that my wife is a behavioral specialist for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Really? Have I ever told you guys that I used to be on TikTok? I don't know.
Purposely cut my leg open so badly, I would have to go to the ER to get it stapled back together.
What? That's what? She purposely cut her leg open? That's unhinged behavior. What?
It was genuinely the only way in my mind to take
What?
a day off without being harassed for a reason why. Wow. I had spoken to Madison.
I mean, what? I mean, listen, is it possible that they were so horrible that she was driven to do that? Sure. It's more likely, though, that this woman is unhinged. No normal person would cut their leg open to go to the ER for a day off. That's insane. Okay. I don't... do we think that speaks well to her? I feel like that speaks very poorly to her. What the hell? Yeah, she's... I don't know, dude. I mean, if you're engaging in self-harm like that, like, this might... Like, a high-stress job might not be for her. It could be that, too. She might be a nice person, but she might have her own issues going into the job, and that she may not be able to adhere to the job. It's perfectly possible that this woman has some, like, you know, struggles with mental health, and there's nothing wrong with that, but some high-stress jobs aren't congruent with her. You know, and that's what it sounds... Based off that, that's what it sounds like to me, man. I mean, that's just what it sounds like to me.
Managers about how I was struggling and how the workload was too much for one person. But I was belittled and told, you just have bad time management skills. This is why I'm so glad I work for myself, but continue. There are so many instances that led up to that moment. Some of them I have replayed over and over, asking myself, what did I do wrong? How could I have changed the situation?
Maybe you cutting yourself... that's not right. You shouldn't do that. Let's say see a therapist or something, man.
But I don't think I could have. I was not treated fairly, and in the moment, I couldn't even see that because I was told I was the problem by people I had looked up to for years. Okay. I had coworkers come up to me saying, I didn't like how you were treated. Glad you got out. And only then I realized it wasn't me. I haven't shared any of this besides with my closest.
It's possible that she was shit at the job and treated like shit. You know, I don't know, but I don't know, man. I'm a little skeptical about some of the shit she's saying at this point.
Friends and family, because
she needs, I don't know. She needs to get off Twitter, bro. Or she needs to change her content to making like fucking, I don't know, like My Little Pony reviews or something. That is insane. engage in like self-harm over the work. I mean, like at that point, why not quit? I don't know. I understand things can be harder than they seem, but holy fuck.
Couldn't, at the time, take any more hits to my mental health. I couldn't deal with how small and worthless the job had made me feel, all to push out some mediocre crap posts. I mean,
they have a certain amount of job, like content they need to post. That's their adherence. That's what they do. So
scared of what the response will be, since I am a woman and have already been called dramatic.
I mean, bro, you cut yourself to get a day off. I could see why people might say that. Or you're lying about that. I don't know, man. Like, I also find it hard to believe. I don't know.
What happened to me because I am seeking clout. I'm stating it because it has been eating away at me for 2 years.
Maybe.
There are genuinely amazing, compassionate, and incredibly intelligent people who work at this company and are driven to just share cool tech they love. It sucks that ego and bottom line are slowly destroying some of them and hurting the entire reputation of the company. I didn't ever want to say anything for fear of hurting those people and their employment, but at this point I am hurting myself keeping this all in while also being constantly bombarded with questions about LTT and jokes made at my expense. I have been patient and tried to ignore these comments, but some of you don't understand the mental anguish and nights of crying, feeling like I did something wrong and ruined my life that I had to go through. This was my dream job. I was at my dream job, and they spoke to me like I was nothing. I can't express to you how...
Listen, it's possible that this was her dream job. It's possible that they treated her terribly. It's also possible that she was awful at the job, and all of these things together are stressing her out. I mean, you know, like, I don't know, man.
Worthless I felt. They seem to hire young people who don't know any better for some roles, and they get away with this over and over. This wasn't just a dream job.
I mean, it's a tech thing. Wouldn't young people be the ones that want to work for you? They'd be the most willing to work there? No? Is that not logical? Or
it is a dream job. There are so many more stories of horrible things and shows of ego that I witnessed while working there. But I just needed to get...
That's what happens when you work with men. Let's be real.
out at least some of what I experienced, because it has been 2 years, and every day I see people speculate is another day I'm forced to feel small. Also meant to add, yes, the Glassdoor review was me. It was, at the time, the only way I felt I could safely express anything that had happened. Since any time I had previously tried, I would be crucified by fans sticking up for who they loved. The things said by Linus about talking to management and HR and promises about how things are handled internally.
My thing is, where's the inappropriate sexual shit? Like, she's like, oh, they touched me inappropriately. Like, what does that mean? Because now, like, did they try to, like, sexually touch you? Or did they just, like, brush you on the shoulder when they were behind you? And these are different. Like, they are. Like, I've had that happen at work, too. It can make you uncomfortable. That doesn't mean that it was trying to be, like, a sexual assault thing. My thing is, like, what you made these, like, really robust claims, and you sprinkled those in between some, like, claims that are irrelevant to me, really. Oh, they were mean to me. Oh, this, like, I get it if that's true, but, like, where's the sexual assault stuff? Like, how come that we're such a big, like, there was no focus on that? Does she have anything? Possibly?
Were a gross misrepresentation of what actually goes on behind those doors. I remember he posted this in response to people speculating something wrong had happened to me. And if you read it, it pretty much says, no one has come out against us, therefore we have done nothing wrong. And this is what it says. And this is written by Linus. For obvious reasons, there won't be an official statement disclosing private details about my dealings with any of our current or former staff. You and Reddit can stop asking. On a separate note, no NDA or other agreement can prevent a Canadian from reporting workplace mistreatment, including, but not limited to, harassment, discrimination, or unlawful termination. They can post it publicly, submit a statement to the authorities, or do both for good measure. As long as it was true, it wouldn't be defamatory. If I'm actually accused of a crime or other misdemeanor, including any violation of employment law, I'm sure you'll be able to read all about it in Dexerto. For now, it appears that we are in the clear. That's an awfully prickish way to put it.
Not really. That's the way that a business would put it. That's a normal way to put it. All of those things are correct. If she has allegations of some kind of abuse, then she should report it. An NDA doesn't protect that. You know, I mean, listen, it's possible that there was nothing going on and they could just cover their tracks. But it's also possible that she's sensationalizing and lying about it, and we just don't know. But that's not really a prickish way. I mean, like, that's a business way to talk. That's like a legal response. And, like, they're a big company. Like, I understand that we have, like, somewhat parasocial, you know, interactions with some people in these positions. Like, oh, we know them. But at the end of the day, they're still a business, and they're going to treat it professionally, especially when it comes to some allegation like that. They're going to, like, have their lawyer basically give them, like, a way that they're supposed to speak about it. It's very normal.
Oh, all right. When I read this, I was fuming with upset.
Why?
Because what a dick thing to post when you're at least partially aware of the treatment your employee was getting from your higher-ups. But I don't know what I expected from someone who would mock others for not knowing who they were.
Okay.
Oh, no, I hope that's just hearsay and not true.
Well, all of this is hearsay. All of this, none of this. Well, none of this is hearsay, actually. I don't. Wait, hold on. None of this is hearsay. I don't think. Wait, let me define hearsay. I'm pretty sure hearsay is saying something that somebody else said, and information received from other people that that one cannot adequately substantiate. So, like, none of what she's saying is really hearsay, except for the one thing where she said, "Oh, this worker said that they feel bad for me." Nothing she's saying is hearsay. It's just not provable. It's an accusation. It's not really the okay.
Linus, don't tell me you pulled it. Do you know who I am? Oh, no.
Okay.
Oh, God. I'm just going to take that as hearsay.
It's not.
Let's
what that
continue.
is,
I
but-
was asked about my sexual history,
Okay.
my boyfriends, how I like to, can't say it here. I was told that certain issues were sexual tension, and I should just take the coworker out on a coffee date to ease it out.
Oh, it's inappropriate for sure.
Oh, my God.
If it's true.
I was asked to twerk for a coworker at one point. I was told I was chunky,
Okay.
fat, ugly, stupid. I was called a word. I was called the F slur. And at any
What's interesting about this is that, like, all of the things that she's claiming have happened to me at my job. Everything, all of it. And so here's this three possibilities. Well, there's two possibilities. Well, I mean, there's three. One of them is that she's just lying. Another one is that they were trying to be sexually explicit with her in a way because she's a woman. And another is that the way that men talk when it's just men in a building is is considered inappropriate regardless. But men think that it's, like, okay. And that doesn't make it okay. That's like a conversation about how, like, you need to act differently when you have different people who are sensitive to different things. You know, these are all factors here. It doesn't make it inappropriate, but yeah, I would just kind of need to know more context there.
any point I would bring up these comments, I would get told, "Oh, we will have a chat with them." Nothing ever came of it. The day I handed in my notice was when someone who constantly overstepped me misled what I was working on and said to me, "I think the reason you try to be funny is because you lack any other skills." They smiled and walked away.
Well, it sounds like they don't like you.
I quit 15 minutes later. It hurts when people compare where I am now to where I was then because, yeah, I had a bigger audience. Yeah, I made more money on Twitch. But I didn't even know if I wanted to exist if the person I had looked up to could treat me and other people I respect like pawns. It sucks because that was what I had worked for. For years, I had tried to get noticed by this big company and this cool guy I respected. Because of this, I was willing to get shit on for that job, yelled at, and degraded. I was also the one tasked with managing the OnlyFans account, something I said I didn't want to do. I had to read comments from people talking about how they wanted to...
They did an OnlyFans account? I'm assuming it wasn't a sexual OnlyFans account, and it was part of OnlyFans' push to try to get more non-sexual individuals to be part of their skidoo. I guess I could be wrong about that. But that sounds like it was probably what it was.
Blank me and my coworkers. I saw people's ha's and hoo-ha's. I said no, and I was told only a little longer. If you want to say I'm just hopping
Well, that just sounds...
on a... I said no. I saw people talk people's ha's and hoo-ha's.
Well, yeah, it sounds like the people that are subscribing there are going to be inappropriate about it.
I said no, and I was told only a little longer. If you want to say I'm just hopping on a bandwagon, that's fine. It doesn't take away from the very real experience that I had, or that sharing these without current events would have gotten me persecuted for attacking a company most of you until a few days ago thought was perfect. She's right about that. If she came out with this before what Gamers Nexus exposed, that's why she didn't do it.
Fuck.
It's not an excuse, it's the truth. You damn well know if this was pre Gamers Nexus video, it would have been a disaster for her.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that she's right. Like, you can interpret it as that if she came out before Linus looked worse, people wouldn't take her seriously. And you can interpret it as now that people don't like them because of that Gamer Nexus video, people are more negative in their interpretation of them. Like, they're somewhere in the middle. This is how like biases work, right? Like, there's a development of a bias here, and people are on her side because they don't like Linus Tech Tips right now because he's making shit content, right? But somebody making shit content doesn't necessarily mean that they're like abusive in some capacity, but okay.
Now that people know that there are huge flaws at LMG, it's like, oh, I could actually see this happening. Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, okay,
well, let's be real. It's not that you're saying that you could see this happening. You think that it happened. Like, you've decided that she's correct instantaneously, and like I think that that's generally problematic in the way that we deal with stuff. Like, it's good to listen to it. It's good to take it seriously. It's good to not instantly say she must be lying, but it's not good to over-affirm what she's saying. So
they also forced me to have them as my representation if I wanted to take any other sponsors for my Twitch or YouTube channels. Originally, I had... Okay, makes sense. They also forced me to have them as my representation if I wanted to take any other sponsors for my Twitch or YouTube channels. Originally, I had been told...
That makes sense, though, because they want to make sure that the advertisers that you're taking fall within, like, their particular guidelines. I mean, again, they have a brand that they have to maintain. And so, like, if they have a particular image, that would be like if I started to work with, like, some kind of a group that was, like, child-friendly. Like, they did child content. And then I'm like, you know what? On my personal channel, I'm going to take an OnlyFans deal. Like, they're probably not going to be okay with that because that doesn't represent them. And since I'm an employee of them, especially if I'm a public employee of them, they'd want to make sure that I was adhering to the way that they wanted to be represented because I am now part of their business in a social atmosphere. So, like, all that makes sense to me.
Just make sure you okay things by us for non-compete issues. Then that changed when I moved to take the job. They cornered her then. They lied to her. They got her there. And it's like, yeah, you're stuck in Canada now, so we could do what we want. We could control your sponsors. That's just wonderful.
What? I mean, maybe it's what there's okay.
To be clear, this meant I couldn't seek any companies to represent me to brands for sponsorships. Something important for make.
That's not what that means. What? They also forced me to have them as my representation if I wanted to take any sponsors for my Twitch or YouTube channels. Originally, I had been told just to make sure. Just make sure you okay things by us for non-compete issues. Then that changed when I moved. To be clear, this meant I couldn't seek any companies to represent me to brands for sponsors. Oh my god, I had to reread that. This doesn't matter. What this means is that she couldn't look to other companies as representation for brands and sponsors. This is something that would be very obvious to anybody if they were engaging a company. The company is telling you that, like, they are the ones that are effectively representing you in the sponsors. It's not that big of a deal that you couldn't seek out a company to help represent you in a brand and a sponsor. You could still get brands and sponsors. You just can't get a managerial company that's looking for them for you. I mean, this is like, to me, that makes sense. If they weren't explicit about that, I mean, it sounds more like she just didn't read her contract. She signed it before she even read it. I don't know if, like, show us your contract. I don't know. I'm just having a hard time believing any of the things that she, like, a lot of this stuff is weirdly represented as if it's like, oh, it was so horrible. They wouldn't let me do certain they wouldn't allow me to do certain, you know, brand deals and stuff because I'm partially representing them, and that like they were basically my representation for sponsors. Like, okay, you could still get sponsors, you just can't be hired by an outside company as like a managerial representation. That's not like a big deal.
Making a living on Twitch or YouTube, but LTT also wasn't doing this for me. They were just going to take any traffic I gained myself, make a deal, and take a cut. I eventually got all the...
That's how any manager company would... Wait, what? No, she's... What? She's literally admitting it. To be clear, this meant I couldn't see... but LTT wasn't doing this for me. They were just doing to take any traffic I gained. Oh, so she's telling us that they weren't going to help her, but they were going to take a cut? Okay. I mean, if that's the... Then why did you sign the contract? I don't understand.
Money back that they would have taken when I called out their calculation.
And like maybe part of that's because you are going to be bigger because of them, you know, because now you're being represented by them, or because you're working for whatever. Like, read your contract.
Calculations for the cut they should have been taking were being made before any sort of supplies were reimbursed, even though in the contracts there was a set aside amount of supplies.
So then if it's in your contract, why don't you advocate for yourself?
Still angry that for a year I was being forced to sit under them while they weren't doing anything a company would do to really represent you. And then somehow a big corporation gets the math wrong on how they should be paying you. For example, a company is paying you $600. $100 they are giving you is specifically to...
I mean, if there was an issue with how much you're supposed to make, why didn't you advocate to yourself more to them? Is the claim that you did that and they weren't listening? Like...
spend on their platform for content. The cut LTT was trying to take was the total $700 and not the $600 that was the actual payment. I had to talk to multiple people before this was rectified. Also, apparently some managers...
Okay, if the company's paying you $600 and $100 they are giving you specifically to spend on their platform for their content. Okay, so advocate for it. So what she's saying is, like, let's say they get 10% of your stuff, but these people were paying you $600 plus $100 that they're giving you to spend on their own platform, which I don't even know what that means. What are you, like, gambling? They were going to take 10% of $700 instead of $600. So we're taking an extra $10. Like, that would be what it would be in this instance. And then she just said she had to talk to multiple people before it was rectified. So like they dealt with it, they rectified it. She's complaining about something that they dealt with, and she won out on it. Like, why are you complaining about something?
Didn't like me because I had gotten drunk with them before, which was said in that haha just joking but actually I'm serious tone.
Oh, maybe she's an obnoxious drunk.
After I came forward.
Oh, wait, what? Why are we going past that? So the people didn't like her when they probably went out like to dinner together. Like, people do that, and they didn't like her because she was an obnoxious drunk or something. And they're like, "Oh man, that's so terrible." I mean, maybe. Well, what the fuck? I'm dead. Maybe she's just kind of a poo-poo head, noodle nose. You know, I don't know. Maybe she's a really mean drunk. Maybe that's why people didn't like her.
About being assaulted, someone accused Linus of inappropriate conduct on Twitter. He came over to my corner and started berating her, calling her insane, mentally ill, an attention seeker, and just digging into this poor woman who had felt wronged by him.
After I came forward about being assaulted, someone accused Linus of inappropriate conduct on Twitter. He came over to my corner and started berating her, calling her insane, mentally ill, and attention seeker. Okay, so what it sounds like is, I guess this girl talked about her assault while she was working there, which is unrelated to Linus. And then somebody accused Linus of inappropriate conduct, and then he was talking about how that person that accused her was wrong. So you would say that's insensitive of him if he knew that she was assaulted. But coming over to your corner, it sounds like there's multiple people in your corner. Okay.
Again, that one I'm going to go into hearsay, and that's behind the scenes. It's another
all of it
person
is
outside of
all of this is
and Linus.
Okay,
it's outside of Madison, Linus Media Group, and
okay.
You know, then we're getting into he said, she said, she said, she said, he said, he said.
That's
stuff.
all of
Let's
this
continue,
is.
Though.
That's all.
Also,
of this
remember
is.
the corner I was in. People would sneak up and try to scare me.
Okay.
After the incident, I was nervous about this and requested a mirror so I could see behind me. Jesus Christ. I watched two coworkers get what I had asked for weeks before they did. It took 2 months to get mine. Similar things happen whenever I request anything. I needed more RAM installed on my PC for months because I was expected to edit red footage, which is...
Okay, so she would ask for things and it would take them time to get it for her. That's all I'm hearing. Okay.
You need
But they would get it
resources for that. I've dealt with it before. It took 5 months and a writer being kind enough to do it for me when the numerous requests I sent in were ignored or put off.
Okay.
I would go to management for help and get told I could handle it myself. Eventually,
That's funny to me because you're working for a tech company and they're like, and you're saying, I need to have something installed. And they're like, you do it yourself. Like, you work for a tech company. And she's like, I can't. That speaks volumes to me because she's complaining how she needs a computer upgrade working for a tech company that she said was her dream job forever. And then they're like, do it yourself. And she's like, I can't do it. And it's like, maybe that's what they mean when they said that she was kind of bad at her job. I don't know, like all these things kind of are like they add up to like none of this is substantiated, and it sounds like I'm complaining about everything.
I was pulled into a meeting for insubordination because I had gone around the system for requesting RAM after I was ignored for months and dealing with my PC crashing and losing work daily.
So why didn't you just put RAM in it yourself? Okay.
Keep in mind, I had made $25 of purchase requests in my entire time working at this company.
Okay.
I requested this notebook to help my poor time management skills, and it was denied, and they said, you don't need it. You have lined paper. I was upset and responded back that this was...
You needed a notebook for your own time management skills? What? 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 I request this notebook to help me with my poor time management skills. It's talking about like a computer notebook or a regular one. Either way, you were... What if I worked for a job and I was somebody that had time management issues, and one of the ways that I dealt with it was by getting a marble notebook to write things down? I wouldn't expect the company to pay for that. That's just a you problem. What are you talking about? These are so petty.
It was different. No, then bam, another meeting, Madison. Why were you rude and non-communicative with this manager?
God.
I didn't know I was being told no,
terrible.
but then I got in trouble because they said they didn't know I was still upset. Cut to me being...
Bro, she's the person on TikTok that was complaining about time blindness, just so we know.
Being at my desk, and I get a message saying, I didn't know you were still upset. You never emailed me back. They had lied in front of the big boss to make me look bad. And worst of all, if I knew I brought this up, I would be the one getting reprimanded for tattling. Because, you know, it's second grade. There was
the
also...
RAM she couldn't buy herself because you can't do that on most jobs. Yeah, I can understand why didn't, like... the RAM thing is weird to me. I don't know. Like, it sounds like they said do it yourself, and she was like, I can't do it. Like, I can do RAM, and I'm not a computer person. You could fucking Google that.
Numerous times I was asked why I couldn't just check up on socials or do little jobs during the weekend because it's social media. So is it really working? Imagine telling someone in 2021 social media isn't a real job.
It's not. Well, it depends on what it is. Looking at your Twitter isn't a real job. Listen, again, like, I don't know the part of her job. Some people are expected to be salary in some capacity. And it's like, yeah, I mean, listen, you could say that like, oh, that's wrong. But if they're like, hey, can you check the social media sometimes on your phone really quick while you're like on the weekend? That's not a big deal to me. Like, yeah, I mean, I come from like when it came to my job, I worked a 40-hour week. I had no problem like helping out sometimes if there were like little things. Like, I'm not the kind of person that's so petty I won't answer a phone or a text message from a manager. You know, some people are to an extent on call. I don't know their work agreement. That might have been a little bit a part of it. It's like, hey, can you take the 5 minutes to check social media and just see what's going on? They didn't say that you need to edit a new video over the weekend. They're just like, can you check your social media or our social media? Since she seemed to be the manager over the weekend a little bit too. That's not like crazy to me.
Which is amazing too, because Linus Media Group is now a multi-million-dollar corporation due to social media and YouTube and whatever. Okay. I'm sure there will be more things I remember and wish I had mentioned in this thread in the coming hours, but for now, please don't attack individuals who don't actually have power at this company. Most of them are blameless or powerless to actually
You think that she meant buying the RAM, not installing it? Maybe. I think it's so vague, we have no idea. We just don't know it.
Change anything. Also, quote, why didn't you take legal actions, unquote. I had just quit my job, was scared crapless of this company.
Why?
Felt like I was worthless, and personally, I don't have millions of dollars to throw at legal fees. I said no unless you make sure you clear.
Don't think you would need millions of dollars to pursue like a legal case when it comes to workplace representation. But okay.
Clearly stated that I quit. They then
You would be able to file this issue. There's like a whole institution in like everywhere that helps people that are wronged at workplaces. So I don't think that you would need to go as far as to have millions of dollars to fight back against them. There's an infrastructure in like everywhere for this stuff. So okay.
never mentioned it on the WAN show. Now, I know a lot of you are going to become insta-skeptics and say, why didn't she mention this years ago then?
Yes.
Before what happened with Steve over at Gamers Nexus and him exposing all the glaring flaws.
It doesn't matter because the workplace stuff would have been done in private. It wouldn't have turned into a public situation. So that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the optics of the situation were. These are private matters that would be dealt with legally and privately. So none of this matters. She didn't need millions of dollars for a lawyer. They generally have representation groups for workers who feel wronged that are going to look into this stuff for them. She's just making excuses. I mean, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, if you felt like you were wrongfully terminated or had a bad interaction at a toxic work environment, then go and file a claim. Like, yeah, it's not going to become a public thing.
That happen over at LMG and or LTT, whatever the hell you want to call them. Do you think that she would have been absolutely massacred on social media? There was very minimal negativity around Linus Media Group.
That she wouldn't have dealt with any of this on social media because it would have been done by like an organization. I mean, it's possible she'd have the evidence for it, but I mean, this wouldn't become public.
I mean, there should have been a lot more with the glaring flaws we've seen in their reviews and how terrible they've treated smaller companies before.
Okay.
But before Gamers Nexus's video, you know what the reaction would have been. You absolutely.
I find it interesting that our brains go to like everything that a public company does wrong needs to instantly be taken public all the time. Like, that's not how this would have worked, but okay.
And let's keep it real, especially because she's a female. People, she's just saying, oh, I'm a woman. That's why this is happening. Get woke, go broke, bro. That's why she's...
Part of it could be that in a social media context. Like, yes, there is a thing where, like, women will get more charity in saying things that have happened to them on social media in a place of, like, over-affirming. We saw what happened to Super Mega, where, like, the situation was insane. That girl came forward with a potential, like, a sexual assault. And, you know, people instantly believed them and shit on Super Mega for not dealing it the right way, even though, like, they did, right? They ended up firing the guy, and then they blamed them for not going to the police. But it's like, why would they? This is her story, you know? And so, like, you know, and it's also possible that the workplace culture wasn't great for her because they were a bunch of guys that are ignorant. There's a lot of different possibilities. The best thing to do would be to report this issue, you know? So
he's coming out with it now because people are like, oh wait, this company has some really bad things going on behind the scenes. Interesting. So now Linus Tech Tips or LMG, whatever the hell you want to call them, they have a video up called "What Do We Do Now?" Okay, and the
I don't think
Tong,
it addresses
the
this.
new CEO of Linus Media Group, is in there. Linus is in there. His wife is in there. They have editors and everyone talking about how they're gonna, you know, fix things behind the scenes, and they're gonna allow.
I mean, did she at the very least go to like an employment lawyer and be like, "Hey, like, do I have a suit here?" I mean, okay.
Community to audit them, and they're taking time off to fix things behind the scenes, and that's all well and good, and I hope that they do. You know, I'd like to see this be a wake-up call for them. But the thing that's frustrating is that you cannot tell me, especially after what Madison put out there, you cannot tell me that this was all accidental and Linus had no idea. And
I can tell you that we don't know if it's real or not, and that you're just assuming that it actually happened. And, like, we don't know if it actually happened. You're assuming it's all true. And that's just not the way that we deal with stuff like this. That's it.
All the higher ups had no idea over at LMG that all these mistakes were happening. they didn't. You can't tell me that they didn't know about all the terrible things going on behind the scenes and saying if anyone complains that they're tattletales, that they didn't know about this. Look, I know that no company is perfect, and human beings work at corporations, and human beings do stupid things, and terrible things happen behind the scenes, because we are all just animals at the end of the day that have to pretend to be superior to animals.
Yes.
Just, I know that sounds super bleak and pessimistic, but let's keep it real. But what it sounds like Madison went through, and Linus's first response being a long, drawn-out non-apology in a forum post, and having to wait to fix these glaring issues when they were happening over and over. It wasn't like...
Well, we don't know if... Okay.
No, even if it was like 2 or 3 videos a month, you know, that there were mistakes made. Yeah, that's not good, but all right. You know, you're putting out so many videos. It's not the end of the world. It's still unacceptable, but not the end of the world. But like Steve Burke over at Gamers Nexus said, this is like a fairly regular thing, that these glaring mistakes were in your benchmarks and your tests and your reviews. And when you have, how many, 15.5 million subscribers, you can make or break a company. Even bigger companies can get severely damaged by the misinformation that you were putting in reviews. And it's inexcusable. And the fact that it continued to happen, it's like, oh, no one's really paying attention, so let's just keep going. We'll be the first to have the reviews out and the algorithm will love us. It just kind of shows where your priorities are,
I guess.
Now, I'm not looking to stick up a pitchfork at Linus or hold
Oh, you are. Yes, you are. You believe everything that she's saying without question. Like, it's fine to listen to what she says, but you are looking to put up a pitchfork. Like, I think there's definitely things that are worth criticizing, but when you come in here and you just say, I believe everything that she's saying without question, like, which is what you're doing, you can't say, I'm not trying to hold a pitchfork up. Right now, the social atmosphere is against Linus Tech Tips, which makes sense because they seem to be making huge mistakes. And because of that, people think that anything that's against them that comes out must be correct about them. That's what it comes down to. And you're not parsing through this information in a way that's like, okay, like, these are really serious claims. That's not good. We'll see where it goes. You're making a moral statement that you think that she is actually telling 100% the truth, that everything that she says is valid, even though you don't know that.
pitchfork, excuse me, at Linus Tech Tips or Linus Media Group, and I'll give him another chance and see where things go, because we all make mistakes, and maybe this huge wake-up call will turn the company around. Okay. But man, they have a lot of work to do behind the scenes, and we'll see if they actually do it, or if this video was just corporate speak like every other corporation.
Okay.
This is Rich at Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.
Let me read really quick what they have to say here. I'm curious about it. We're taking Madison's allegations seriously. We are conducting an internal assessment along with a third-party investigator to look at the allegations. Okay, I thought that's going to do anything. We are committed to publishing the findings and implementing any corrective actions that may arise due to this. Thank you for your patience, and please allow us the time necessary to be as thorough as possible in this investigation. In addition to our existing report systems, both anonymous and otherwise, we've proactively reached out internally today to encourage our team members to report any workplace bullying or harassment they might have experienced so we could take quick and decisive action. These allegations do not align with our company's ethics or the values we preach internally. We aim to provide an inclusive work environment where everybody can feel comfortable, and more important to, okay, yes, the typical bullshit like I would expect for them as a response. Okay. Cool. That's it. There's really nothing else to say. Like, I mean, they could be true, they might not be true. Hopefully things change for the better regardless. But, like, I think it's a bad standard to set to say, hey, these must be true because, like, somebody's saying it.